Umaga po sa ating lahat. Sa ngalan po ni Bishop Roderick Pabilio, ang pong chairman ng Episcopal Commission on the Laity, at lahat po ng present na nasa board dito ngayon, ngayong umagang ito, pati na po yung ating past president, si Mr. Marita. Welcome po to everyone, and I believe that itong ating conversation today is very important, no? For the political exercise that we will be having next year, no? Next year po yun, pero halos 9 months na lang, no? A little over 9 months. And I'm sure that when the bare months comes, which is this coming Wednesday na, magpa-fast forward na po ang lahat ng political activities. Ito po ay napakahalaga at we are in full support of all of these initiatives from Sangguniang Laiko, kasi yun naman po yung role natin, yan po yung mandato natin as the laity, no? As the church tells us that we are to be in the forefront of engaging in temporal affairs. At yan po ay kasama po yung ekonomiya, environment, and ang politika, no? And help them according to God's plan. Kaya again, nagpapasalamat po kami kay June at saka sa aming mga namumuno sa Sangguniang Laiko for this morning. And we welcome all of you, and may God bless our webinar this morning. Thank you po, and again, welcome to everyone.
Salamat, Brother Roquel. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Pag-isipan mo at magdasal tayo. Sana po ako ang kakante, kaya lang baka sabihin nyo di tayo seryoso eh. Pero yung isang araw pong ito ay talagang ilinulusad natin upang ipagpatuloy ang ating sama-samang pagninilay-nilay, pagdarasal. Sabi nga nila pangingilatis. Natutunan ko po yung word na yun, spiritual na pangingilatis, discernment. Sana tama, upang magkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon na magkasama-sama, pag-isahin ang ating mga puso para sa isang bagong pamaraan, bagong daan, new approach, and in the spirit of the Fratelli Tutti, ay new politics, bagong politics, a better kind of politics. Sisimulan po na po ang araw na to sapagkat marami po tayong gustong matutunan. Masaya po tayo na pinaunlakan tayo ng ating ngayong presenter na alam ko namang kilala na po ninyo. But allow me to give a short introduction for our speaker this morning. Of course, you already know that our speaker is Atty. Alex Lacson, who is a lawyer by profession and is a co-founder and partner in Malcolm Law, a firm in Ortigas, Pasig City. But while he is a lawyer by profession, Atty. Alex, first passion is writing books for the country. His first book, 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do to Help Our Country, became a national seller. Sana po may makakopya pa kayo niyan. Okay? And in 2010, because of the success of the first book, he was invited to run for the Senate by former President Noynoy Aquino. Atty. Alex is also the president, or became the president of ISA, a public institute that implements and runs good governance and development programs in various local government units and national government agencies like the AFP, the Civil Service Commission, the Department of Trade and Industry, the Board of Investments, at iba pa. And in 2019, Atty. Alex was requested by the Sangguniang Laiko ng Pilipinas to write a book, okay, together with a group of youth writers on the dreams and aspirations of the Filipino youth, Our Dream Philippines. And this product, the product is a book entitled Our Dream Philippines, at nandyan po yung maliit at nag-iisang bangka. Nandyan po tayo ngayon. Some of our youth writers are with us today and will also share their thoughts on how we can build our Dream Philippines. Lastly, I just would like to say may pang-ipit pa pala ako dun sa taas, no? Yung suklay, ganda, no? Para hindi ko malimutan yung sasabihin ko. Pero lastly, to say that Attorney Alex Lacson is a patriot and one whom we believe the Lord will continue to use for the transformation of our society and the transformation of Philippine politics. Without further ado, would like to welcome Attorney Alex Lacson.
Maraming salamat, Brother June. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. I'm really honored po to be with you this morning. I don't know kung nandyan po si Bishop Abilio or si Bishop Macaraeg. Sa lahat po ng mga kasama natin dito, kung may mga pari or madre po, sa lahat ng mga lay leaders po natin, no? Yung presidente po natin sa Laiko, si Brother Roquel, Vice President po natin si Ate Rosa, brother and sisters, sa inyo po lahat, magandang umaga po muli. No? Brother John, yung kumanta kanina, parang kahawig ninyo. Oo.
Opo, matagal ko nung tinuroong kumanta yun eh. O bata pa tinuturoan ko na kumanta yun. Opo.
mukhang kapatid ninyo. Okay. In October of last year po, si Pope Francis released his Fratelli Tutti encyclical. It's his third work po, no? And the phrase Fratelli Tutti in English pong ibig sabihin po noon, all brothers and sisters, we all are, no? So in chapter 5 of that Fratelli Tutti po, Pope Francis talked about a better kind of politics. And ito po yung pag-usapan natin ngayon, no? And how we can pursue and practice this better kind of politics in our country. But let me begin po with yung chapter 1 ni Pope Francis doon. No? Pope Francis talked about this better kind of politics. But before he talked about it, he actually described the world and the major problems that are plaguing the world, no, in the global community today. So he referred to these major global problems as dark clouds over a closed world. No? And these dark clouds extend to all parts, to all countries in the world. No? And these dark clouds po are obstacles to the development of, or the fostering of, the brotherhood of all people, the unity and friendship among humanity. So these are obstacles. These dark clouds are obstacles to the fostering or to the growth of the global brotherhood of humanity. What are these dark clouds po? Let me just discuss at least 5 po, no, that are relevant to our discussion today. Number 1 is the emergence of new forms of selfishness. No? So countries today merely pursue their narrow self-serving interests and not the interest of the global community as a whole. No? On the economic front, this new form of selfishness is best seen in the case of global big businesses or these transnational economic powers, the big businesses, who take advantage of the so-called the open world to invest so that they can invest in practically all countries without obstacles, without complications, but also often without regard for the common good of the people in the country and the environment in that country. So, and these global big businesses, these transnational economic powers have globalized the world economy. No? But this economic globalism serves the interests of the powerful, but it weakens the poor countries. According to Pope Francis, this economic globalism has made us neighbors, but not as brothers and sisters. So that's the number 1. New forms of selfishness, especially in the economic area. So the second dark cloud that Pope Francis described, the political leaders use extremism, populism, and polarization as political tools in winning political positions. So on the political front, there is an increasing rise of selfishness and indifference to the common good among many political leaders in the world. So wala silang pakialam sa common good. It's about selfish interest. And political leaders, many of them, spread despair and discouragement to serve their political interest. And ang ginagamit nilang strategy of vulgarity, pagmumura, ridicule, creating suspicion, personal attacks, criticism against their political opponents. No? Political life is no longer about healthy debates on long-term programs on how to advance the people's welfare in the common good. Political life today is about slick marketing political gimmicks aimed at discrediting and destroying political opponents. And this kind of politics, according to Pope Francis, only creates more division and fragmentation among peoples in the world. That's the second dark cloud that described me, Pope Francis. The third dark cloud na dinescribe mo, Pope Francis, itong tinatawag niya na throwaway culture, or the culture of waste. No? When we easily throw away gadgets and other dispensable objects so we can replace them with new ones, mga bago, is one of the major causes for our environmental pollution and destruction for our climate crisis. Pope Francis made a thorough discussion of this issue in his previous encyclical, the Laudato Si. But this throwaway culture, according to Pope Francis, does not only apply to goods or gadgets or dispensable objects. No, it also takes the form of reducing labor costs in companies. Many big companies, in their desire to increase profits, they discard human labor in favor of modern technology, thus creating more unemployment and poverty in society and in the world. It's also it's part of the throwaway culture, according to Pope Francis. And this throwaway, so as a result, because of the use of modern technology in favor of human labor, there is more wealth that is created, but there is also more poverty and inequality that is created in the world. New forms of poverty are also emerging in many parts of the world. So this throwaway culture po also applies to, according to Pope Francis, seemingly unwanted members of the human family. In some parts of the world, the unborn are discarded for being not yet useful, in his words, no? While the elderly are being discarded for being no longer useful, no? According to Pope Francis. The fourth dark cloud that is hovering in many parts of the world, many countries, concerns about the digital world. The digital world today has become a venue for hatred and destruction. It has also exposed people to addiction, isolation, and gradual loss of contact with humanity and contact with social reality. The fifth dark cloud that discussed ni Pope Francis is the sense of belonging to a single human family is fading away. So there is a loss of the social sense among people, a loss of belonging to a one global human family. Instead, there is an increasing sense of isolation of people. Walls are being built that seek to separate us from each other. Silos are being put up. And there is an emerging culture of indifference. And amidst this culture of indifference, nagka-thrive yung mga criminal syndicates, yung gangs. Maraming nag-emerge na vigilante groups in many parts of the world, including the Philippines. DDS is one such phenomenon. Private armies emerge. The killings, no? The killings by motorcycles in them is one such example of this phenomenon na in-explain ni Pope Francis. Instead of having a shared roadmap for bringing peoples together as brothers and sisters in the world, there is now a class of culture because of this sense of isolation, because of this sense of losing that sense of belongingness to one human family. According to Pope Francis, all these dark clouds, those five that I mentioned, including them, hinder or prevent the development of global brotherhood among people, the solidarity, the unity, and social friendships among peoples in the world. In the meantime, these dark clouds worsen our perennial problems of unemployment, poverty, inequality, racism, slavery, human trafficking, human organ trafficking continue to choke peoples around the world. And these issues are often relegated to the backseat. So, yun po yung five dark clouds, part of the major global problem that minention ni Pope Francis, that prevent or hinder us from building this brotherhood, unity, social friendship among humanity in the world. Now, let us analyze, are these dark clouds, these problems present in the Philippines? Yes, they are. And they are present in our country in an extreme way. I think we have the worst versions of these problems. No, let me begin. No? On the political front in the country, our political leaders, most of them are self-serving leaders. They serve themselves and their families more than they serve our people, the common good, and the people's welfare. And these political dynasties, many of them have become mini dictators in their own areas. Wala silang pakialam. No? In fact, if you go against them, they can destroy you or even kill you. No? And they use ridicule, the vulgarity, personal attacks, foul means, fake news against their political opponents. Patayan. No? Patayan. We have the worst version of this. Our political system has become highly dynastic. It has been captured by more than 200 political dynasties in the country. 80% of our governors belong to political dynasties. 76% of our members of Congress belong to the same political dynasties. And more than a great majority of the mayors in our country belong to the same political dynasties. 200 lang po yan, around 200 political families, but they have captured our political system, the leadership in the LGUs, and the membership in the Congress. No? Magkakamag-anak sila, mag-asawa, mag-ama, mag-ina, magkakapatid. Pinaghati-hatian na nila ang ating bansa. Kanya-kanya sila ng political kingdom. Philippines has now become the political dynasty capital of the world. Sa economic front, no? Yung describe ni Pope Francis na new forms of selfishness in the economic front, is this also present in our Philippines? It is po, no? Also in a worse way, in an extreme case, no? Our country's economy has become oligarchy, controlled largely by just around 100 billionaire families in their business conglomerates. No? According to our economists, around 80% the growth of our economy taon-taon napupunta lang po or nagbe-benefit lang these 100 billionaire families and their business corporations. The top 1% in our country, they own and control 90% of the wealth and resources in our country. No, 50%, no, but the 10% control the 90%. Under Bayanihan Acts 1 and 2, 90 million Filipinos were classified as beneficiaries of ayuda because sila yung tinawag na or classify na low-income families. 90 million Filipinos po, ibig sabihin, that's 80% of the country's population. Ibig sabihin po, out of 110 million population sa ating bansa ngayon, ano lang po, no? 20 million Filipinos lang ang okay yung stable yung economic situation. 20 million lang. But 90 million Filipinos are considered low-income families, vulnerable to all kinds of economic crisis. No? So in fact, according to SWS survey report, 2 months ago, ng July lang po, no? Sabi ng SWS survey report, only 17% of our population did not feel poor, while 83% of the Filipinos nationwide, they felt poor or borderline poor po, no? That's the the poverty situation in our country. No? The Philippine economic system has become one of the worst versions of free market capitalism in the world. It is definitely worse compared to the economic systems of Taiwan, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. These countries, ang economic system nila, free market capitalism them in varying degrees. Except that, how come they are so much better than us? No? So, third, yung ano po ni Pope Francis, yung throwaway culture, itong consumerism, present din ba sa ating bansa? Yes po, no? According to a report, Philippines is in the top 10 of most polluting countries in the world, plastic polluters in the world. In fact, 7 of the top 10 polluting rivers in the world are in the Philippines, according to that report by isang environmental group, no? A global environmental group. And Philippines is also among the destroyers of forest in the world. 100 years ago, 90% of the Philippines was covered by forest. 100 years ago po, no? Today, Philippines, ang forest cover natin is only 23%. So, ang bilis ng forest destruction sa bansa natin. So, anong klaseng politics yung minimension ni Pope Francis? A better kind of politics, no? According to Pope Francis in chapter 5 of his Fratelli Tutti. According to Francis, a better kind of politics is what we need in our world, in our country, in the Philippines. A better kind of politics is one that would eliminate inequality and poverty. No? So it should eliminate inequality and poverty. The prevailing market system in the world and in the country is generating economic growth. But this economic growth benefits only a very few. And these very few are those who are already economically rich and powerful. So there is a lot of wealth that is generated because of this economic growth. But there is also a lot of inequality and poverty that is created despite the economic growth. Because the economic growth benefits only the few, those who are already poor, powerful, and wealthy. So, sabi ni Pope Francis, the economic theory of the trickle down, no, or the spillover, which is the theory behind the present economic system that dominates the world. According to Pope Francis, that theory is a failure. It is a failure because it is creating a lot of inequality and poverty. It only benefits the few. No, yun po, no? According to Pope Francis, eliminating inequality is now the more important thing than economic growth itself. So the second feature of this a better kind of politics, according to Francis, is that it must be a politics that allows every person a life of human dignity. So that politics must allow every person a life of human dignity. Ang ibig sabihin po, this idea, and according to Francis, no, this idea of allowing every person a life of human dignity must not be left alone to the private sector or the business sector na sila lang yung magdedetermine ng lahat. So, the life of every person to have that life of human dignity must not be left to market forces alone, according to Pope Francis. Ang ibig sabihin po, the government must intervene and the church must also intervene. No? They must intervene to ensure that the people have decent work or job and that their working conditions are fit for decent human living. They must intervene to ensure, ibig sabihin, the government, including the church, must intervene to ensure that the minimum wage is also a living wage that allows people to live with their families in a decent and comfortable manner. So they must ensure that in all environments, human liberties, freedoms, and rights are respected. Pope Francis also questions the prevailing liberalism and the new forms of liberalism the neoliberalism, saying that not everything in our society can be solved by market forces, no? Because the nature of the market is to maximize profit, no? And to reduce cost and to maximize profit. And in the process of maximizing profit, people are affected. No? Their families suffer. So, in his latest work, which is a book of Francis, entitled "Let Us Dream: A Path to a Better World," si Pope Francis offered 5 principles that could serve as a guide to this better kind of politics. No? What are these 5 principles that could serve as a guide for in our pursuit of this better kind of politics? No? So the first principle mentioned by Pope Francis is the principle of the preferential option for the poor. The poor should be at the center of our thoughts. They should be the primary and biggest beneficiaries of our policies and programs, no, in the government. The second principle, according to Pope Francis, is the principle of the common good. Our politics should serve the highest good of the people in society, the welfare of the people, not only the personal good of those who have the means and the power. Third principle is the universal destination of goods. According to Pope Francis, God created the earth and everything in it for the enjoyment of all human beings, for all. No? While private property is a right, its use must not be at the expense of the common good and the welfare of the people. So the use of private property must be regulated according to Pope Francis. It must serve the common good, not only the personal good. There must be a balance. The fourth principle of this better kind of politics is the principle of solidarity. Under this principle, we are one family. We are one human family in the world. In the country, we are one human people. As a nation, we are family. And we must be our brothers and sisters' keeper. We must have a shared roadmap for a better future as brothers and sisters living in the same society. The last principle, or the fifth principle mentioned by Pope Francis, is the principle of subsidiarity. While we try to work together in unity and solidarity, we must respect each other's culture, no? And each other's destiny. Because each of us, even if we work together in unity and solidarity, each of us has its own way of doing things. At bawat isa sa atin has a unique destiny, no? in life and in this world. So, but our challenge today is, our biggest challenge is in the country, how do we implement this better kind of politics in our country? How do we pursue it? No? And in fact, the first question is, who will pursue it in our society? No? Can we expect traditional politicians?
Planta na to na riba.
Can we expect the traditional politician to pursue this better kind of politics for us? I seriously doubt it. Can we expect the business sector to pursue this better kind of politics for us? I doubt it also. Can we expect the professionals to pursue this better kind of politics for us? They're also too busy, no? Can we expect the media, the academe? It's not their mandate, no? Can we expect the police and the military to pursue this better kind of politics for us? Can we expect the youth to pursue this better kind of, maybe, no? But they also have so many things in front of them. Can we expect the church, no, to pursue this kind of politics? Yes, it can, but it has its own limitation. Only by talking about it in the pulpit, by encouraging the politician to pursue it, by encouraging the citizens to pursue it, and by asking the voters to vote for candidates who pursue this better kind of politics. But what about the lay organizations, the faith-based communities, the lay people, tayo? I strongly believe that the lay organizations in the faith-based communities in the country are the best sector, are the best people to pursue this better kind of politics. So tayo yun. no? Tayo yun. However, the lay organization especially, in the faith-based communities, they have a handicap. They have a limitation that they imposed upon themselves many years ago, no? Why? Because the lay organizations in the faith-based communities, they have adopted, practically all of them, a non-partisan stand. No, they don't campaign for good candidates. They don't support as a group for good candidates who will push for this better kind of politics, and that is our biggest problem actually in the laity. If we can only get away from that, no, change that, and be involved and participate, I really believe that it is the laity, the faith-based communities, that is the best sector that can push for this better kind of politics. And right now, I'm glad to know at least that there is a political party that, in my opinion, is pursuing this kind of politics, no? This better kind of politics. And I refer to the Kapatiran Party, no? Kapatiran Party that was founded by Nandi Pacheco, who was also a lay leader, no? Very active, and by, I think, Norman Cabrera and si Eddie Cuenca. So I believe of all the political parties out there, only Kapatiran Party has the moral stature and credibility to push for this kind of better kind of politics in our society. Now, as lay people, part of the laity, how can we implement or push for this better kind of politics in our country? I must say that all the lay organizations or faith-based communities in our country must come together and work to realize this better kind of politics in our country and find a way to get out from that protective shell of being non-partisan. By being non-partisan, we are allowing the country to rot and be ruined by the politicians. I really believe it is time for lay leaders to get involved and do more. No? So, of course, we can do voters' education. We can do that, but we have been doing that for many decades. No? And we have not succeeded in a big way. We have successes, one success here or there, 1%, 2%, 3%, 5% success out of 100, but not enough. No, not enough to make a big difference in our country. So all the lay organizations and faith-based communities need to come together and push for this better kind of politics. In fact, I would really encourage, and this is, and I like that this is the thrust of the Sangguniang Laiko now, no, that we encourage good people to run for positions, run for councilor, vice mayor, mayor, congressman in your areas, or we encourage our own members in our own lay organizations to make that bold step, make sacrifice, and offer yourselves an alternative as candidates of this better kind of politics that Pope Francis is espousing. Or maybe you yourself should run, right, as councilor, vice mayor, and together maybe if the lay leaders would just take this bold step, if we can find candidates in every town and city and district in our country, na mga lay leaders lahat yun, I think that's going to send a very, very powerful message to our lay people out there na tumitingala sa mga lay leaders ng mga lay organizations natin. Or the other option is we either put up a new political party or support a political party that is pushing for this better kind of politics in our country. So don't worry about the separation principle between the church and the state. I have long studied it. I'm a lawyer po. No? I have given talks so many times about the separation between the church and the state. The separation principle between the church and the state does not apply to us lay people. No? So it is possible for us to become lay leaders, lay minister, and run for public office at the same time, or campaign for good candidates that we want to support. It is not a violation at all of the separation principle. No, in fact, even priests and openly support and campaign for any good candidates out there. And they are not violating the separation principle by doing that. No, the church bishops and priests actually criticize any policy, program, or decision of any public official, even the president, and that is not a violation of the separation principle. Why? Because under the Constitution, sinabi nyo, separation principle, it's barest minimum po. 3 things lang yan. Pag sinabi yung separation principle, number 1, the government cannot set up its own church. Nasa Constitution yan. So, bawal na magtayo ang gobyerno. Si President, halimbawa, si Presidente gusto magtayo ng sariling simbahan, bawal yan sa Constitution. Pangalawa, bawal po sa Constitution na magbigay ang gobyerno ng funding to any church. Yun lang po, no? At pangatlo po, bawal ang gobyerno na magpasa ng any batas pabor sa isang simbahan. So, yun lang po in essence ang separation of church and the state under the Constitution. Wala na pong iba, no? So, hindi po bawal yung lay minister ka tapos magkampanya ka for, hindi po bawal. Lay minister ka tapos tatakbo ka for, hindi po bawal yan, no? Pare, magkakampanya for any candidate, hindi po bawal yan. A church leader questioning any government policy, hindi po bawal yan. It's not part of the separation principle. But there are people out there who distort the truth, no? And they would say na, pag nagsalita ka, sasabihin na, oh, bawal yan. They are misguided. Or maybe they are misinformed, no? So, yun lang po, no? Let me end by saying that the lay people, the faith-based organizations, the lay organizations are the only hope that I see that can push for this better kind of politics as espoused by Pope Francis. And we are glad, ako personally, I'm glad that Patiran is there pushing for this kind of politics. And I'm glad that Laiko is now pushing, looking for good candidates out there who can push for this better kind of politics. Maraming salamat. I hope you learned something from my talk. Thank you po.
Guard their hearts, guide their hearts to choose the narrow way. Hinihingi po natin sa ating mga kasamahan sa Laiko na maintindihan na ang ating papasukin sa mga panahong ito ay isang paghamon, isang panalangin, na bagamat mahirap man, kailangan natin gawin. Maraming salamat, Atty. Alex, sa iyong pagbibigay ng presentasyon to give us an idea of this Duke politics, a better kind of politics. Shift gear po tayo ngayon upang makinig sa ilang mga kabataan na nakasama ni Atty. Alex na sumulat nitong librong Our Dream Philippines. Inanyayahan po natin sila ngayon para mag-share ng mga kasaluubin nila para kamukha noon at ngayon sa kalagayan natin ngayon. Ngunit bago pa man sila tawagan, gusto ko po sanang klaruhin ano po ba ang itinutulak natin para po sa mga nakikinig. Bukod po doon sa mga sinabi ni Atty. Alex, isa pong hinihingi ng Laiko ay bigyan ng pagkakataon ang ating mamamayan na makapagsabing bago naman ay new politics, a better kind of politics, new people, new approach, bago naman MAMSIR. Kaya tinatawag natin, nakikiusap tayo. Binago po natin yan, sabi natin MAMSIR, mamamayan ang magluluklok sa samahan ng independenteng representante. At doon po ay humihingi kami sa bawat congressional district sa lahat ng mga diocese na sana po ay makapag-file tayo bago mag-October 8. Bago mag-October 8, mag-file lang po kayo ng mga pangalan. Kayo mismo, i-file nyo yung pangalan nyo. Okay? Para lang may kandidata tayo sa congressional districts before October 8. At habang tinutuloy po yung mga circles of discernment, hahanapin po natin yung mga po pwedeng tumakbo talaga para makapag-substitute po tayo at makapagpatakbo po tayo ng mga leaders natin. Kung walang magpa-file, walang makakapag-substitute, wala po tayong choice. At wala tayong magagawa para masimulan ang pagbabaklas ng mga political dynasties, sisimulan sa Kongreso. Ngayon po, tatawagin ko po ang una nating sharer, dalawa po ating sharer. Ladies first na po muna. Ang una po, tatawagin natin isang miyembro ng Elim community, si Elaine Matito. Siya po ay, dati po ay she serves as the Digital Ministry Head and Content for and Deputy Coordinator ng Elim. So, she is a contributing writer of Living Water, a daily devotional for Catholics, and works full-time with a private company in a beauty industry. Ito po yung binabasa ko lang po yung how she was described in the book. And Elaine is mahilig po siya sa mga sports, okay, high-intensity trainings on her free time. But more than that, she is a very strong and courageous Christian. We like to call now our sister Elaine Matito. Okay.
Thank you so much, Brother June. Maraming salamat po. At magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. It is an honor to join in this conversation on good governance for Bago naman, MAMSIR, para sa Bagong Politika. And maraming salamat. Thank you so much, Atty. Alex, for inspiring us with your call for the lay people to act on installing the right leaders for our nation. Alam niyo po, as a young person in my 30s actually, in 2016, after the result of the national election was published, I fell down on my knees and sobbed in prayer. My heart was broken. Number one, because a Christian-dominated country seemed to have forgotten the qualities of a godly leader. And number two, there was nothing I could have done but to exercise my right to vote. For several years, I found my hope diminishing while watching all the cruelty and evil unfold in our nation. Therefore, this call, initiated by Laiko, serves as a reawakening for me that hope is still alive. We have this chance not just to vote, but to influence our respective groups towards a new politics. As I was reflecting, I was reminded of a few leaders in the Bible who reluctantly answered God's call. There was Moses, who tried to give several excuses to God. David, who was actually tending his sheep when Samuel called him and anointed him. But I wish to highlight now Gideon. Please allow me to read Judges 6, verses 12 to 15. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon replied. "But if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Why are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian." The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hands. Am I not sending you?" "Pardon me, my Lord," Gideon said. "But how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." That's the word of the Lord. And now we know that Gideon's army defeated the Midianites with only 300 men in his army. I would like to share the basic learnings from this story. Number one, the Lord can use even the weakest person to save his people. All it takes is a heart submitted to him, submitted to the Lord, and God can certainly work through anyone. The second point is God wants us to rely on him even with a small number of people. Imagine with 300 people in the army of Gideon, he defeated the thousands of army of the Midianites. We don't know yet how many people will be identified until the deadline of filing of candidacy, but the Lord will certainly filter his army based on who will win the battle for him. And the last point will be, there are times when the very answer to our prayers is in our hands. When Gideon asked the Lord, "Why has this happened to us?" the Lord told him, "Am I not sending you?" As I end, I would like to quote number 1913 or 1913 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church under Article 2 or participation in social life. That says, participation is the voluntary and generous engagement of a person in social interchange. It is necessary that all participate, each according to his position and role, in promoting the common good. This obligation is inherent in the dignity of the human person. We are called to participate in promoting the common good to fulfill God's purpose for our country. It is certainly not an easy task, and we might have a long way to go, but at least we're starting somewhere, and we therefore need to start it now. Thank you so much for answering this call, and I believe that the Lord will raise up His army in the coming days from Laiko. Thank you, everyone.
Maraming salamat, Elaine. Habang nagsasalita ka, naniniwala ako na gumagalaw din ang Espiritu Santo sa puso ng mga nakikinig ngayon at makikinig pa. Inaanyayahan po namin ang lahat ng mga kasama natin ngayon na panuorin ulit itong sa Facebook, ang replay nito, at ipasa po ninyo sa mga kabataan, sa inyong mga kaibigan. Ngunit gamitin ninyo bilang panalangin. Am I not sending you? Baka ikaw lang yung hinihintay sa lugar ninyo upang magpatala ng pangalan, upang masimula ng isang malaking milagro, upang masimula ng isang malaking pagkilos dyan sa lugar ninyo. Kailangan natin ng tapang na nanggagaling sa Panginoon. Salamat ulit, Elaine. Thank you. And at this point, we'd like to call on now a brother, a good man, who also is part of the authors group of the Our Dream Philippines book. Hindi ko na po siya pakikilala ng mahaba. Marami na po rin nakakakilala sa kanya dahil matagal na siya sa showbiz. Nagbibiro na po ako. Pero kaibigan po kasi ito namin siya. So, papakilala ko na po ang isang brother from Ligaya ng Panginoon, si Mark Alejo. Good morning, Mark.
Morning. Salamat, Kuya June, and to all our brothers and sisters who are watching us and then joining in this particular conversation. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Ang ibabahagi ko po ngayong umaga is about the article that I wrote for the book Our Dream Philippines, and ang nais ko pong makuha sana natin dito sa I only have 5 minutes, no, but at the end of the talk I have the main objectives of one, sana makumpel kayo to act, no, because I want you to be provoked by this short sharing presentation of mine, because I want to also speak from practical and ground experience of how political dynasties really affect our lives and the lives of the youth. So this short presentation is titled on political dynasties and shattered dreams, because I want to carry really the perspective of the youth, no, yung mga millennials going Gen Z and going A, no. I'd like to reiterate what Attorney Alex, thank you for your talk. It was a very comprehensive one, covering all aspects of our subject matter for this morning. And this is really my thesis statement, no. Our main problem talaga yung mga nakaupo, the elected leaders. And if you will analyze all throughout since the Marcos era, why the Philippines, instead of going up, we're going down, sila talaga ang may problema dyan, Again, this is a refresher of what are the types of political dynasties that we have right now. We have thin and fat. Yung thin, yung sunod-sunod lang sila. And then when we say fat, yung mga kamag-anak, lahat may pwesto, no? Nanay, tatay, asawa, kapatid, brother-in-law, anak, pamangkin. So fat dynasties, no? These are the two types of political dynasties that we have right now. And some depressing fact about the fat dynasties, no, as mentioned by Attorney Alex, maraming pag-aaral, but in the Philippines, at the forefront of it is Ateneo School of Government, led by our friend Dean Ron Mendoza. And may statistical figure talaga sila dito. This is a scientific study. Hindi ito yung sabi-sabi lang. No? Kulturang Pinoy kasi sabi-sabi lang. But these are based on reality, on solid statistical facts. So 80% doon sa mga fat dynasties, mga nakaupong gobernador. 67% of them nasa Congress. No? And 50% of them hold the LGUs, the local government mayors, serving as mayors. So, and I just want to stress this fact, that, families, 200 plus of them practically owns the political system of the Philippines. And I'd like to share this with you. There really is no end to greed. This is part of the study conducted by ASOG. Sinundan nila yung dalawang senador ito, mag-asawa ito. Si Senator 1 tumakbo ng 29 to 2012, pinalitan siya ng asawa niya sa Senado, no? Makikita mo rito na yung SALN nila talagang pataas lang. Pataas lang, no? They are itong mag-asawang to hindi na natin papangalanan, no? Pero lumangoy daw sila sa sa basura, no? Ganun yung kanilang political branding. But it says otherwise. Their wealth says otherwise, diba? And they champion what? Right now, si babaeng asawa ay chair ng Committee on Agriculture sa Senate. But does she speak for our fisher folks, for our farmers who are, provide food for our table, yet are the most impoverished sector in our country? So brothers and sisters, maling-mali talaga, no? So the political dynasties, maling-mali. The more these families consolidate wealth and power, the more they control all the domains of the society, economic, social, political, and even cultural. Diba? Sila yung trendsetters. Sila yung nakadamit ng Chanel, no? Ng Givenchy, no? Ng Louis Vuitton. So they are trending, no? And now, pag tumingin tayo sa sarili natin, do we think we're poor? Yes, we're poor. And you'll be surprised that we will be poorer if the system will pervade later on. No? And there's a statistical backing to this. No? Let me share with you the sentiment of the Filipino youth. Researcher din po ako. No? I'm a social development researcher and I really like to research. No? So, madami pong rason kung bakit burdened ang mga kabataan ngayon. Worst GDP growth since 1947. No? In a span of 5 years, nakita natin pagbagsak the economic downfall of the Philippines, no? Pinagsama-sama na 'yon, no, simula Marcos hanggang Pinoy, no, yung downward trend, no. Grabe, in span of 5 years na-achieve natin 'yon. And then we're faced with climate change, the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change issued a study very recently that we're nearing that point of no return, no? Red alert status na tayo sa buong mundo, and yet the capitalists are not bothered by it, no? In fact, ang pinag-uusapan natin ngayon, space travel for the rich, 'di ba? Unahan sila sinong makakapunta sa sa space and who will be the first one to colonize Mars. Yun yung pinag-uusapan ngayon, no? Ng mga elites of the world. And income inequality and lack of opportunities now that we are in the midst of the pandemic and we're seeing that PhilHealth is failing, our healthcare system is collapsing. Nearly in the metro, nearly 3 million Filipinos are out of job. And ito, yung items 5 and 6, I conducted a personal study on this. No, I just sent a survey to all of my network, no, who's of my age. And a staggering number of them says, ayaw na nila mag-anak. Ang daming concern sa mundo, bakit ko papahirapan yung anak ko? No? This is so sad. This is very, very depressing. And majority of them, 70% of them desires to just migrate because the Philippines is such a mess. No? And marami pa pong rason. I just want to highlight that again, ito po yung babayaran nating utang matapos ng rehiyong Duterte. So, paano po natin yan babayaran? Yun ang tanong. In my venture to convert hearts and minds, no, of the ordinary folks that I encounter out there, ito po yung mga madalas na nasabi ko, no, ay nasasabi nila, mga matatanda po yung nakakausap ko. No? So, wala naman tulak kabigin sa mga yan. Sila-sila pa rin naman mananalo, sila-sila naman may pera. So, sila tatakbo. So, wala nang mababago. And yung mentality na okay lang mangurakot basta nabibigyan tayo. So, it's a reflection of the state of our hearts and minds that we are hopeless already, and we choose to just submit to the prevailing political and social structures of our country. No? So yung ganito na po yung pag-iisip ngayon talaga. And again, I might struck a chord here, but the older generations have placed us in this misery. Ito po talaga yung sentiment ng mga kabataan ngayon, no? And then you will tell us it's up to the young people now, but in the first place we just have to reflect bakit kami yung magbabayad nito. I mean, it's a fact, no? It's a legitimate question. So what enabled the dynasties then? No? It's again introspection po. The faithful did not object to the prevailing oppressive political and economic system of the Philippines. The faithful remained okay with the illusion of non-partisanship. No? Neutral lang tayo, ganyan. No? The faithful did not use the faculties God gave them. Simpleng pag-iisip at critical thinking, hindi ginawa. No? So our choices, the politicians whom we support, strongly reflect who we are as a people then. Diba? Sabi nga nila, we deserve the leaders we elect. And it also characterizes our relationship with God and with one another. And to end this short sharing, gusto ko pong magalit tayong lahat, no? We're way past the period we're in. Lahat tayo ma-inspire, may mag-talk, maganyan, ma-inspire tayo, good feeling. We're way past that, brothers and sisters, no? Kailangan magalit na po tayo, at yung galit na to kailangan po righteous, no? It should be placed in the Lord, because again, we're doing this for our brothers and sisters and for the Lord. So maraming salamat po. I hope you are compelled to act right now, brothers and sisters. God bless us all.
Ikaw pala, Mark, gagalitin mo kami. Sisisihin mo pa kami ngayon sa mga pangyayari. Mga kapatid, nakakahiya, no? Nakakahiya sabihan tayo na we are in this position dahil sa ating hindi pagtayo sa maraming panahon at hindi pagkilala sa mga katungkulan at karapatan na dapat nating ipinaglalaban. Ngunit salamat, Mark. Naniniwala kami sa mga sinabi mo at humahanga kami sa tapang na meron kayong mga kabataan. Kulang na lang sumigaw kayo ng revolusyon para sa Panginoon. Parang ganun, kulang na lang. Ganun ang isigaw eh. It's a youth revolution at this time. But that is really what we want people to understand. Mga kapatid, magalit naman kayo. Ano ba yan? Wala ba kayong galit sa inyong mga katawan? Sabi nga nila a gentleman is one who is gentle when it's time to be gentle, but who must be angry when it's time to be angry. Okay? So kung makakita na isang gentleman, di marunong magalit pag kailangang nagagalit sa mga sitwasyon. Kailangan po nating ipaglaban ang ating bayan. At nagpapasalamat po kami kay Atty. Alex, kay Elaine, kay Mark sa paghamon na ibinibigay niya sa atin. At patuloy po nating ipananawagan, itataguyod itong mga bagong paraan na ginagawa natin. Ulitin ko lang po, ang hinihingi po namin sa ating mga kabunyian, kami po ay nakikipag-usap sa ating mga kabunyian, mga pare, ay bigyan ng pagkakataon ang mga kabataan na magsama-sama, magkapag-isip, sabi nga, critical thinking, magkaroon ng pagninilay at magkaroon ng spiritual na pangingilatis Ginagampanan ba yan, mga katungkulang yan, ng ating mga nakaluklok na mga opisyal? At kung sinasabi na ang pinakaugat ng kahirapan na kinasaglakan ng bayan natin ay yung political dynasties, posible bang mag-file tayo ng mga pangalan bago mag-October 8 upang magkaroon ng pagkakataon, okay, na makakuha tayo ng 300 seats on tapang kala mo, 300 seats ni Gideon para sa Kongreso. At wag po kayong gumahan, may mga tutulong po sa inyo kung sakaling may mga makalusot dito. Unang-una, yung bill, okay? Yung proposal para sa pagbaklas sa political dynasty, nakasulat na. Maniniwala ba kayo dyan? Nakasulat na, ready na yan. Okay? May mga nagsulat na po niyan at maitatanong po natin kay Atty. Alex, ready na ba yung ating bill dyan para ibagsak ang political... Sabi niya, ready na yan. Okay? Pangalawa po, kung mamarapati ng iba na ayaw nilang tumakbo ng bilang mga independyente dahil natatakot sila. Ha? Tatakbo ako, independyente? Wala naman akong kalaban-laban? Okay? Meron po na isang partido na nagsasabi sa atin, ang kapatiran, nagsasabi na kung meron talaga interesado na tumakbo bilang congressman, ngunit nagdadalawang isip, walang susuporta, o bilang mayor, o bilang konsehal, puntahan nila yung website ng Kapatiran Party. Pag-aralan nila. At pag nakita nilang ito yung partido na palagay ko makakatulong sa atin, makipag-usap po kayo sa mga leaders nila. So meron pong mga partido na maaaring makatulong sa inyo upang itaguyod itong ipinaglalaban po natin ngayon. Bago naman, MAMSIR. Ang oras ko po ngayon na 11:23, may ilan po tayong mga katanungan. Salamat kay Atty. Alex at yung iba ay sinagot na niya sa chat. Okay? Pero dahil nga nakikita naman ni Atty. Alex, baka meron ka lang gusto pang bigyan ng mas malawak na paliwanag do sa mga tanong na nasagot mo na. Baka meron ka lang gustong bigyan pa ng konting elaboration.
Brother Jun, yun lang. Gusto ko lang ulitin yung panawagan ng Laiko. Kailangan talaga ng bansa natin mga bagong lideres. Di ba? Mga new leaders with new hearts, new minds who can really push for this better kind of politics. Kasi one of the biggest things that we need in our country is change of leaders. Hindi tayo magkakaroon ng change of leaders kung walang mga bago na tatakbo. So thank you for taking this. Actually, I'm really glad that the Sangguniang Laiko ng Pilipinas, under the leadership of Brother Roquel and of course si Atty. Rosa and Brother Juno, you're taking this and it's really high time that we do this. So yun lang. Maraming salamat, Brother Jun.
Baka po may katanungan kayo para kay Mark at kay Elaine. Pwede po kayong magsalita ngayon o bumati man lang sa kanila. Sabihin, galing nyo bata. Yan. Alam niyo po, na-inspire ako dito sa dalawang kabataang ito. Sa mga susunod na araw, magiging viral na po itong video na to. Makikita na ng sambayan ng Pilipino ang mga kabataan, kamukha ni Elaine at ni Mark ay nananawagan. Kayo po ang magpapalaganap niya. No? Pakinggan niyo itong mga kabataang to, humahamon sila. Nagsasabi sila na umaangal ka sa Panginoon, sa kalagayan natin. Nung sinabi ng Panginoong, ikaw ang kumilos, sasabihin mo, bakit ako? Pinakamaliit yung aking bayan, ako pinakamaliit sa aking lipi. Bakit ako? At sa sinasabi nga ng Panginoon, am I not sending you? Yun din po ang itatanong natin sa sarili natin.
Brother Jun,
tawag nga ba tayo ng Panginoon? Yes, Atty. Alex.
Brother Jun, if I may, sige, gusto ko i-stress itong importance talaga ng political dynasties. Let me say at the start, by saying that in my view po, political dynasties are the biggest obstacle to our country's growth and development. And they are the number one root cause of our country's social cancer today. And in fact, I call them as this is the bottleneck problem, or the bottleneck problem. If we can find a solution to the political dynasties, we will be able to find the solution to other major problems, the problems of corruption, problems of wrong policies and programs, the problem of bad governance, problems of meritocracy, yung so on and so forth na in the government. Kasi all of them are related doon sa political dynasties. So it is the bottleneck problem. If we can find a solution to these political dynasties as a problem, we'll be able to find solution to the other major problems in our country. The biggest corruption po, hindi lang po nangyayari there are 4 levels of corruption po. One is, the first level is yung corruption doon sa LGUs. Ito po yung mga mayors, congressmen, and governors. The second level of corruption po sa level po ng Congress, dominated also by political dynasties na kamag-anak po ng mga mayors and governors. The third level of corruption po is yung level sa national government agencies. So the department level, AFP, so on and so forth, PhilHealth, NGA, that's the third level. But the fourth level, ito po yung highest level. May level po sa Malacanang, no, na ang sobra-sobra. No? Kasi for instance po, nung panahon po ni former President Noynoy Aquino, yung Office of the President, ang budget po was only mga 800 million a year, or maximum po mga 1 billion in 1 year. In 1 year, Office of the President, 800 million, 100 billion. Pero ngayon po, ang Office of the President, ang budget is 4.5 billion in 1 year. No? Last year, I think 4.7, 4.8. Last year, it was mga 4 billion din. No? And most of it po, ginagasta sa donations. And donations, kanino, paano, di ba? So, wala pong naglalakas loob yan na tatanungin yan. Kasi yung pag sinabi mo yung discretionary funds po, no, intelligence funds, hindi sa masyado na alungkat talaga ng COA, no. So sa Office of President po ganyan. But sa office ng bawat mayor and governor, meron din pong discretionary funds na ganyan. So yun po, no. That's why so much wastage of public funds nangyayari po, no. And most of these are nasa sangay po ang mga political dynasties. So alam niyo, di ba, there was a newspaper article written by si Bo Chanko of the Philippine Star and si Jarius Bundok of the Philippine Star. And when yung House Speaker daw was si Alan Cayetano, meron siyang parang 27 na deputy speakers. No? At bawat deputy speaker po, may additional na budget of 250 million a year. No? 250. So meron siyang, apart from the 70 million na PDAF ng congressman, pag deputy speaker ka, may 250 million pesos ka pa a year. 27 po yan. Di ba? Kailangan ba ng isang Speaker of the House ng 27 deputy speakers? Bawat isa may 250 million every year po. No? Ngayon po, hindi yan binago apparently. Ang bagong speaker now is si Lord Alan Velasco. Lord Alan Velasco. And dinagdagan pa po yung number of deputy speakers, naging 32. So siguro tinuloy po nila yung practice na bawat isa, on top of the 70 million na PDAF, meron pa pong 250 million bawat deputy speaker every year. Sino po ang nagmamonitor niyan? Sina-check ko ba ng COA yan? Wala po. Walang nagmamonitor. No? So, and again, iba yung corruption doon sa level ng mga mayor, sa LGU, sa level ng mga mayors, sa level ng mga governors, sa LGUs. Iba pa po yung level sa level ng corruption doon po sa Congress. So, that's why I really call them ito pong mga dynasties. They are really the biggest obstacle to our country's progress and development. The number one root cause of our country's social because they corrupt everything on their path. So, if you can find a solution to it, sana. Yun lang po, Brother June. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much, Attorney Alex Lacson. Thank you very much to Mark and Elaine. And my time is 11:31. We're going to put this meeting formally to a close, meaning sasara natin at pagkatapos magre-remove record tayo para hindi na tayo recorded. And then we will stay, yung mga pag-i-stay. May mga tanong dyan. Magaganda yung mga tanong ninyo na nadyan sa chat na yung iba hindi ko kailangang sagutin on record. Yan. Kasi mahirap namang pinangangalandakan natin yung mga plano natin. Okay? Sasagutin natin yan after we have ended the time. Please stay and hopefully before 12 yung gustong magstay can stay but yung the other can leave now. But formally, we'll put the meeting to a close and we'd like to thank Attorney Alex, Mark and Elaine and all of you who attended the session this morning. If you will allow me, I'll just end with a simple prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Panginoon, lumuluhod po kami sa inyong harapan ngayon sapagkat alam namin na ikaw lamang ang makakikilos, ikaw lamang ang makagawa ng paraan upang ang aming bayan ay makaahon sa aming kinasadlakan. Panginoon, hinihingi namin na bigyan mo ng lakas ng loob ang aming mga leader, ang aming mga lay organizations na manindigan, humanap ng bagong paraan, humanap ng mga bagong tao, magluklok ng mga bagong mga leaders upang ang bayan namin ay mapunta sa tatahaking bagong landas na ito. Salamat Panginoon sa pag-alam namin ang lahat nito ay nakaayon sa plano mo. Hindi ang aming tagumpay ang naming pinagdarasal, ngunit ang tagumpay mo ang pagliligtas sa amin. Salamat, Panginoon, sa araw na to. We ask this to Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, good afternoon. Thank you very much, everyone. I think hindi na po recorded to. Tinatawagan natin si CBCP News. Sir Dens, wag mo nang isasama.